Blayne, your new movie that's coming out is Cut to the Chase. And I want to just quickly talk about, you had 3 movies previously that you also wrote, directed, and starred in. And those were Outside Sales, Weather Girl, and 6 Month Rule. And those were romantic comedies.
Right.
So now, why the change in genre? This action crime?
Yeah, you know, my last 3 films, romantic comedies, right? And a lot of that reasoning is just budgetary, you know? It's like I'm doing low-budget movies. My first movie was $80,000, then Weather Girl was under $500,000, and then 6 Month Rule was $1 million. And slowly growing in budget, but always, you know, being a small budget movie. It's basically because I didn't think I could do anything else, because it's way easier to shoot a kiss than it is to shoot an explosion. And like I just thought that was like really my only option between, like, I could do a family drama or something, but no action, no thriller, no anything like that. And then I had this experience actually with Paul Osborne making Favor, which I starred in with this actor Patrick Day. And this was my first experience doing a micro budget movie. I believe the budget was under $50,000 for that, and it was intense, and it had thrills, and it had a real noir kind of feel to it. And then I have friends, a filmmaker named Zach Forsman, that made an action film called Down and Dangerous last year, and I was just amazed at what he was able to do on the budget. So I was inspired by these other filmmakers who were doing really risky, micro budget things and pulling off these really amazing films. So seeing those guys, I'm like, it is possible. So I set out to do that, and basically built the entire film around being able to do it for this budget.
So now you play a bad guy this time, whereas before you're always the lovable, either bachelor or in some type of a love entanglement. Yeah. So why the change? Why write that role for yourself?
Well, part of it was budgetary. Part of it was, like, you know, in doing an action thriller kind of thing, one of the biggest risks is, you know, harming somebody. Like, you know, one of my actors getting hurt. And so I built the script around this one guy who gets all the bad stuff happening to him. So I know it's going to be me, and, you know, if I get hurt, I won't sue myself. But that was part of it. But also, like, I really like the idea of like a John McClane kind of character who's like, you know, he's an action hero, but he's a real guy, right? He's fallible and human, and with Max, I just wanted to create somebody who was kind of an anti-hero, who was stepping up to being a man really for the first time in his life, you know, for the only reason he ever would, to protect his little sister, who's always watching out for him. You know what I mean? I like the characters that are flawed, and they're also more fun to play.
Right. Now, you shot the film, right, in Bossier City, Louisiana?
In Shreveport.
Yeah. Or Shreveport, I'm sorry. Okay, that's where you're from, is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in Bossier City, and Shreveport is our big city right next door, so we shot the whole film there, and it was really awesome, like doing a film in my hometown, because the entire community really got together to support it. I mean, like, you know, I wrote all the acting parts for people I knew in the theater community and the acting community in Shreveport, and we built all the locations around locations I knew we could access. But it was great. Like, people would lend us their cars, you know, for show cars. They would show up and do extra work. Literally, people made lunch for us, so we didn't have to spend money on lunch. It was really cool, and like we just did a big like premiere in Shreveport, just kind of to thank the city, you know, for all the support they gave us. Red carpet, tuxedos, the whole thing, and it went really well. So we've got a big support team down in Louisiana that can't wait for this movie to come out.
Did you have any moments where, let's suppose you were between takes or something, and it hit you like, oh my gosh, first of all, I didn't even know if I could make it in LA or New York, and now I'm back in my hometown. Like, some kind of weird like thing hit you? Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing more surreal than being on set and shooting a big fight scene, and, you know, having the blood and the thing, and we have, you know, guns with blanks going off. We've got a stunt coordinator standing right offside, you know, making sure I'm okay. And I look up, and my mom is helping out with craft service over there. You know what I mean? It's incredibly surreal. It's like these worlds colliding, you know. But yeah, I also shot 6 Month Rule in Shreveport for a bigger budget. So I've had both sides of like getting to come home and getting to bring a production there. And cut to the chase, it's much more a homemade movie. Like Shreveport is all over that thing, you know. The 6 Month Rule, we kind of built it in LA and then brought it down, you know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm getting confused because I remember seeing it and there were a lot of city shots, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering how that was because I mean, so many people leave their little town and they go to do bigger things, and sometimes there's people that want them to succeed, and then there's others that kind of like, you know, maybe they're enviously living through them, thinking, well, I don't know if I could do that. So
no, absolutely, that's absolutely true, and
yeah.
that happens. You know, happens with me. I think it happens with everybody. You know, you've got people who are, you know, staunch supporters of you, whatever you do, and then you have people that are just waiting for you to fail. And I mean, I think the more success you have, the more you create, the more that's a very real balance. But like, you know, haters gonna hate.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine anyone hating on you.
Well, that's very nice of you to say.
Yeah, but I know that there's that dark energy out there that you never know. But anyway, so yeah, I just thought it was interesting that you would come back then. It sounds like a second time then, to make these films, and just probably it's got to be a little bit surreal because, you know, so many people end up going back home and then just getting the regular job and never setting foot on a movie set again. And now you're making a second film.
I take the LA job and I just go I take it home. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, it doesn't mean people don't have temporary layovers.
Right.
I think everybody that's in some form of show business has had a layover or two, however long they last. But I think it's just interesting. Yeah, so it must have been cool. And it sounds like your mom is a very big supporter of you.
She's great. She would my mom has always been a huge supporter of mine. But like one of the coolest things was we were having a production meeting in Shreveport. It was our day 2 of pre-production, and my mom asked if she could come to the meeting, and I'm like, sure, you know, why not? And so we're there, and she contributed a whole lot about organizational stuff, and you know, and by the end of the meeting, Mindy Bledsoe, who's my producer, said, "Can we bring your mom on?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, in what way?" She's like, "I don't know, production coordinator." And I'm like,
That's
"If she
cool.
wants to, do you want to?" And she's like, "Well, I'd love to. That sounds really fun." So my mom was our production coordinator, and she's very organized.
Oh, cool. Well, I can see where you get it from because I know that you are very organized. You know, we've talked before, and we've talked about, you know, emailing and calling, and you seem very detail oriented in that way, and that's.
I try to be. Well, you know, I mean, you know, as well as anybody that, like, especially the movie business, it's all details. You know, you let one thing slide, and you know, there goes your marketing for the movie. You know what I mean? It's like, how come there aren't more nuclear accidents? You know, redundancy over and over and over again. You know, it's like, are we sure that the DCP has arrived? The DCP has arrived. Do they also have a Blu-ray player? Okay, I have a Blu-ray in my backpack. If that fails, then we have this. You know, and like, that's life. And the day you don't show up with the Blu-ray, that's the day your DCP, you know, dies.
What have you learned about genre in regards to selling a movie?
Oh, interesting. I went to American Film Market this year to, you know, help promote Cut to the Chase and whatnot, and I learned a lot of interesting things that, like, the genre film, you know, obviously is kind of king in that international market kind of thing. I've always struggled with, because my movies are romantic comedies tend not to really translate into international sales. Comedy is different, you know. Most people who go to romantic comedies, especially foreign, want to see the famous people fall in love, you know, and you know, my people are relatively not famous, so. But yeah, the horror films and thrillers and crime are really doing well internationally, you know. Domestically, I feel like it's really about what the response to the movie has been, like at film festivals and whatnot. Like a good movie can get distribution in the States, no matter what genre it is, I think. But if you want to make the money back, international is really the goal, you know?
I'm wondering, when you were at AFM, what kind of conversations did you hear? Because sometimes you can pick up really interesting stuff that you can relate to yourself when you're in a lobby, at a reception, something. Anything that was interesting that kind of mirrored the sentiment of all the filmmakers that were there?
I mean, the funny thing about AFM is it's not really for filmmakers at all. Like, there weren't many there. One of the reasons I wanted to go is because I'd never spent a long time there, you know, and because I'm also a producer and I have a production company, I was interested in how it works a little bit more. And I think the most interesting thing to me is how kind of antiquated it is. like when we talked last time about the 6-month rule, the business was completely different then, right? And like that was 4 years ago. And now digital has totally usurped all the things we were trying to do then. And it was on the cusp then, but like now it is all about this digital distribution, and the DVD companies and the digital companies have they're now have a system worked out where people are getting paid. Like back then there was a problem with distributors actually paying the filmmakers, and now like there's a system happening again now. AFM seems to have this old school, like huckster kind of like, all right, I got a horror movie over here and I got a religious movie over here. We'll package them. We'll get 5 of these. All right. And it's all built on these really old models of like DVD and like, here's our territory. And I don't know. It's funny. I don't know how much I learned except for it's just all a shell and peanuts game. Is that shell and peanuts? I don't know. Shell game. Moving the things around and like packaging.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that's something,
Yeah.
and things have changed since we last sat down in so many ways. And I know you did screen both the 6-month rule in LA and New York.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that something that you plan to do with Cut to the Chase? You're gonna...
Yeah, a little bit different. Cut to the Chase is going to open in New York February 28th, and then we start a run in Shreveport, Louisiana on March 3rd, and then we are here in LA for a big premiere March 6th. So we're really focusing more on these big one-night premiere things, and because we come out on VOD March 7th. So all of this is kind of working as our marketing wraparound to aim at March 7th, whereas 6-month rule, we did about 9 cities across the country. And what I learned from that is spreading yourself thin like that, and then all you're trying to do is sell 1,000 tickets, as opposed to putting it out into the world, and doing one marketing push and getting that one marketing push to everybody and saying, okay, now all of you can watch the movie. I mean, it's just, there's only so much effort and money you can spend, and it's better to spend the money, for me, on like one big marketing push so everyone knows it's out in the world, as opposed to I'm trying to fill a theater in Oklahoma City, which is something we did. We, would go to a city. We kind of did this like kind of like a rock and roll tour, where I would go and do a Q&A afterwards. But then it's like I don't know, 15, 20 people in Oklahoma City. I have to get them to bring their friends, and then we have to do advertising, and then at the end of the day, what happened? I made $800 in Oklahoma City. I probably spent at least that much getting there and marketing it. And to what end? To me, the most important thing now is telling people that we're in theaters, but then saying, get it at home. You know what I mean? It's a different way of looking at it. But yeah, New York, in 6-month rule, we did a full week run in New York, and we got there and I was excited, and it was like gonna be great. And opening night, packed. Everybody I knew in New York, all their friends were there. We had this great party. It went amazing. The next day, it was a beautiful day outside. I think 3 people came to the movie the next day. And it's just like I was just spinning my wheels trying to get people in there, And when the point is letting people in the world buy the movie and telling them about it, You got to get out there and tell them about it, or they don't know.
Well, one advantage to you having traveled and done this sort of like, Blayne Weaver, tour, was that people got to meet you, and you probably built a good fan base that way,
Absolutely. I mean, it really is like, I feel like the reason I keep getting to make movies is because, it sounds pretentious, but it's a brand kind of thing. Like, it's like, I am my movie. So I go and I meet filmmakers and I do the festival circuit, and I build this community of people who are supportive or interested or even just know who I am. And that leads to an audience for the next film. And like, I love doing that. I love traveling. And there are people that hate hotel life. I am not that guy. I love going and being there for the movie and then talking to people afterwards and getting people's responses. And it's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Yeah, I could see that being your strong suit as well, and I could see that be why people would come out. I know it is hard to that week run is really costly, and it's very hard to get that first night. Sure, it's a party, but once that first night is over, is the real struggle.
Right. So we're sticking for just the one night this
Yeah,
time,
that makes
you know?
sense. That makes sense.
Save some money. We have red carpets at both New York and LA. We can do it more if we only have the one night as opposed to the whole week of, like 6 month rule. I let the distributor at the time talk me into, huge ads in the New York Times. He's like, this is how you open a movie in New York. And I listened, and I'm like, all right, spent a bunch of money to get this full page ad, for the weekend and the weekend section. And then on Saturday when it's empty, I'm like, I could have spent 1/3 of that money on an ad on IndieWire, that we're in New York. Just letting people know, and here's the pre-sale link to buy the movie. I didn't do that. I was following a model from 20 years ago. And that's what this movie has been for me, is saying, okay, we've done the classic theatrical model. What's wrong with that? What do we need to do today, 2017, to get this movie in as many homes as possible?
Going back to what you said about romantic comedies being tougher to sell overseas, how about cut to the chase? Because some of that comedy that may be lost in the translation of the different languages.
Well, I mean, so far so good. Like, Asia seems to like us. So we've sold a couple of territories, and I think that this domestic rollout is going to help that as well. But they like the action. They like Lance Henriksen, who plays our big bad guy, and so the response has been really good. I'm just hoping that we can keep the momentum going.
We're hoping you can give us a brief profile of how you found distribution for each of your films, from Outside Sales, Weather Girl, 6 month rule, and now with Cut to the Chase.
Sure. Outside Sales was, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. That's a very important thing about my first movie. I was doing well acting-wise, and this was the movie that I sold my house to finance. I had done this cartoon for Disney where I do the voice of Peter Pan, and I made a good amount of money, and I bought a house, and then I sold the house to finance my first movie, and we had it, and we traveled all over the film festival circuit and spent all this money, and then came out the other side and was like, all right, I'm broke. I don't have distribution for the movie, and what do I do? So that one was crazy. It took about a year of just talking to everybody, and finally we landed with this company and got a DVD deal, which again, this was when the system wasn't working very well. So it was we got a DVD deal, no money up front, but they threw us a big release party, and that was pretty much it. But the movie was out. That was an important thing. Weather Girl was a way better experience. Weather Girl got into the Slam Dance Film Festival. We had some cool actors. We had Mark Harmon and Caitlin Olsen and Trish O'Kelly, who was on The New Adventures of Old Christine, and they all came out to Park City with us, and that helped promote the movie, and we got a distribution deal right there, and then we sold to Lifetime, which was really where the money came in, so that paid back all of our investors. And then we had this huge international deal where they never paid us. So we had to sue this company in order to get them to settle for 1/5 of what they owed us. Again, the system just didn't work. It was the kind of thing where the distributors, not all of them, but a lot of them would just refuse to pay until you sued them because they knew you didn't have any money. So if you sued them and got that far, then they would settle for 1/5 of what they owe you, which is, a lot of the... Politically, this kind of business is being talked about a lot right now, and in my experience, it happens all the time, of the little guy screaming and yelling about, where's the money that you owe me, and then them saying, no, all right, here, I'll pay you 1/5 and you'll be happy to have it. Luckily, that's happening less now with distributors. But that was Weather Girl. So Weather Girl, we made all of our money back, but before we got into profit, we had this problem with our international distributor. 6 month rule. We premiered at the Austin Film Festival. Film Buff came to us. Film Buff is Cinetic's kind of little brother in the indie film world. And they put us out iTunes VOD and everything like that. It was a great experience. We're still out there with Film Buff, 6 month rule, check it out. And cut to the chase, finished the film, and we've just been traveling film festival-wise and having conversations, and we met with 108 Media, and they seemed down with the movie, and we certainly speak the same language, and they're bringing us out March 7th, so I'm excited.
So it sounds like film festivals are still very important for you to not only show the film and you know, win awards and have those laurels there, but meet people and do sort of, again, the meet and greet, and that's part of the following for the next one.
Totally. Absolutely for me. I mean, like, we kickstarted this film, you know, and I raised $20,000, you know, and that's from, you know, people that I've met along the way who, you know, give a damn about me making another film. And like, a lot of that is film festival people. But I'll say this as well. I meet filmmakers who I learn from, who become assets to me. Like, you know, Paul Osborne, who cast me in Favor, we met at the first film festival I ever went to for my first movie, Outside Sales. Went there, met Paul, became great friends. Now, like, I'm using his house for this interview. You know what I mean? Like, he is a great asset. Like, Zach Forsman, met him, you know, at Oklahoma, I believe, and got to see his movie, and he's been an inspiration to me. And like, you learn by surrounding yourself by talented people who push each other and give notes to each other. And like, you know, I can't tell you how many really great writers I can just send my script to, and they'll read it, and they'll make it better by telling me what, you know, suggestions, what they would do. And that's a huge asset. So also, you're building a fan base for you and your movies, which I think is super important in the indie world, because if you don't have Tom Cruise, you know, you have to reach an audience. And if people have a vested interest because they've shook your hand, it's just like politics, you know? It's like, it's harder to vote against somebody if you've actually looked them in the eye. You know what I mean? So I like going to the places. I like supporting the movie. I have a weird thing about like being worried about my movie playing when I'm not there. Like, what if something goes wrong? Like, what's going to go wrong? It's a movie. It's technical. Anyways. But yeah, I love the traveling and the film festivals, and I think it's good on many, many levels.
I think it's great too that you have a track record. A lot of people tap out after one or two. This is not an easy thing, and you don't always make money back, and sometimes there's debt and there's all these different things. A lot of people are like, you know what, I'm out, this is it. And I think it's great that you have this track record, and I'm sure it's not easy, but I think that shows a lot of people that they can invest in you because you're willing to show up again.
Sure, and like I think that's true, and I think there's lots of times where I didn't know if I was going to be able to make another movie. My first one, Outside Sales, I was so far in debt when that film finished the festival circuit. I went back to a bar, was working 6 days a week, was broke, didn't have anything, didn't have distribution for the movie. It was a really low time, and then I had this script, Weather Girl, that I sent to the lead actress, Tricia O'Kelly, who had just been in Outside Sales as my lead actress. And she read the script, and I was asking her for notes. Being a man, writing a female character, you know, she's one of my favorite actresses, so I'm like, take a look, tell me what you think. And she's like, I love this movie, I want to make this movie. And I tried to talk her out of it. I'm like, no, you don't want to make a movie, I'm telling you. Like, I'm so far in debt, you know, and she's like, well, we won't do that. But so we partnered up and we raised the money to make the movie, and like, I was out of the restaurant world again, you know. But it's like, it's funny. It's cyclical and it's always a risk. And I love having I'll tell you, one of the easiest things about Cut to the Chase for me was nobody was challenging my being there. You know what I mean? And most of your career as a filmmaker or a writer or an actor is like convincing people that you are right where you're supposed to be, you know? Like 6 Month Rule, we had an all LA cast in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I was the writer, director, and star, you know? And like, I felt like I was proving myself every day, not just to my crew, not just to the talent, but, you know, to everyone, you know? And so you'd get a little ground and people would trust you, and then, you know, third week was easy. First 2 weeks was really hard, right? This movie, there was never that. People were on board from the very beginning, and that's just because of the track record. It's just because they're like, he's done this before, I like that movie, we trust him. And not having to gain that faith, it just makes everything so much easier.
I want to go back to the story about selling your house and then working in the bar and writing the script during the day. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, so my best friend growing up is this guy, Brandon Barrera. And he's the big business savvy guy, and I'm the big creative guy. And he convinced me to go in with him and buy this house. So we bought a house in Hollywood. This was, you know, I had money from Peter Pan and some other acting jobs. And we had this house, and then I got into making this movie, and I'm like, Brandon, how about we do a production company, sell the house, finance the movie? He said, sure, let's do it. We financed the movie. 2 years later, I'm broke. I learned about something called capital gains tax. Should know about that before you sell a house, kids. So I got hit with just dozens and dozens of thousands of dollars in debt. I think it was $80,000 at one point. And, I was worried about I had the LLC for the movie, and we had this production company, and I went to work, and I moved into this apartment that I call the hovel, and lived there, worked every single night.
Where were you working?
I was working at the Village Idiot on Melrose and Martel.
Oh, okay.
Which is a great bar, and the guys who own the bar, they had just sunk everything they had into opening this bar. And I would come into work every morning to pick up my tips, like right as they opened. And one day my boss was like, Blayne, tell me the truth. Do you have a drug problem? And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? He's like, nobody needs $80 so bad that they get here at 9 a.m. He's like, what's the deal? And I told him, I just spent everything I have and a lot that I don't to make this movie. And he's like, well, I just did that for this restaurant. So we were in this same situation exactly, and we kind of became great friends. They would always work me and let me do overtime to get a little extra money, and very frowned on in the restaurant world. But they, we're such supporters. Ironically, we've become very close, me and those guys, and the after party for the LA premiere of Cut to the Chase will be at the Village Idiot, which...
Oh, that's great.
I love synchronicity. But so I was writing every day. I'd get up early in the morning and I'd write. And I wrote 4 or 5 scripts that year, the year of the hovel. And it was literally almost exactly a year, because right as the lease was running out, Weather Girl came together. I was able to get out of there. I got paid a proper fee to direct, and I got to direct Mark Harmon and Caitlin Olsen and John Cryer and Jane Lynch. It was a totally different, experience for me. And there was a time where I didn't think that would ever happen, but it was just tenacity. And if I hadn't have been in the hovel, I don't know if I would have been writing as much as I was, and I don't know if I would have done Weather Girl. So, I guess it paid off.
So that being sort of in this really uncomfortable place, or a place that you just felt like, this is not what I wanted for my life.
Yeah.
Pushed you, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. And what's funny is, I have a weird outlet to it, I guess, but when young people ask me, should I pursue this acting, this writing, directing, anything in this business, really, I usually say, well, you have to look at it like I'm being an artist. You're choosing an artist lifestyle. Right? If you're choosing to be famous, that's not reality. You have to look at it and say, am I willing to be broke? Am I willing to have to work, several jobs in order to chase this dream, And if you're okay with that, then this is the place for you. You should absolutely do it. If you're not, I bet you there's lots of different options. You know what I mean? So I try to take it with a grain of salt, just like that down spiral led to Weather Girl, which is one of the high points of my career. So
let's talk about when, I don't know how late you worked at the bar in terms of hours, like 2 a.m.
Yeah, sure.
And you're cleaning up, and so it's like maybe 3 or whatever, you're getting home.
Yeah.
You're getting up early in the morning. How much sleep are you getting?
Oh, sleep, especially those days, didn't really work into it. Because the bar had just opened, and it the new staff was always hanging out and drinking very late, and then getting up early in the morning. Yeah. Sleep didn't really work into it very, very much. But another funny thing about this life is I need to be able to audition, and take meetings Monday through Friday. So I'm working. Those are my, I have to be available, right? So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, holidays, I'm working. So where most people have the day off, that's when I go in, and because if LA is closed, that's the only time I can literally wait tables all day long or whatever, But it was a rough time. I don't recommend it.
So how are you having the discipline to write, especially when writing just takes this concentrated effort, and then when you're in another world that's maybe a little more chaotic, I think it's hard to harness that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, it's kind of like, to me, it's just, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want this thing? It's like, if I can't get up and write in the morning, then why am I waiting tables to begin with? I have a college degree. I can go out and get some job where, I'm on salary and, I won't be able to go to auditions. I won't be able to have meetings. I certainly won't have time to write. I'm doing this so that I can write. So if I'm not writing, then all that time is wasted, at the night job. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does.
Like the two things feed each other. I think the more I hate my job, the more I get up in the morning and write.
Any bad customer situations that just really fueled you and you were able to just put them into the script?
Oh man, for sure. Weather Girl is literally about a girl in the entertainment industry. She's, a weather person, and she quits her job and then can't get rehired because she quits it very publicly, and she has to go wait tables. It's like, if that's not, it's literally what happened to me. Like, I made this movie, I was a director, actor, hotshot, couldn't sell it, I'm back to waiting tables, and I'm waiting on people that, just 6 months beforehand, I would have hired. So, yeah, like, all of those experiences fed into, what Weather Girl was about to me.
Right. Now, I just want to go back to the house thing. So, when you sold the house, do you mind if I ask what year this was?
2005, I think.
Oh, okay. So it was on an upswing.
Yeah,
Really well.
I got out of it right
yeah.
before, like, that would have changed everything. Like, if I had owned that place a little bit longer and then the bubble happened, I certainly wouldn't have been able to finance my movie.
Right. And did you like living there? It was a
Yeah.
nice place? Okay.
It was great.
It's probably a hard decision to make, wasn't it?
No, I was
No,
stupid.
not at all?
I was young and impetuous, and, it was like I was making a movie. It was very exciting. I was not... The hardest thing about making independent film at 40 years old is I know too much, Like, I'm more scared now than I ever was in my 20s or even mid-30s, It's like, now I know that I'm risking things. Then I'm just following my dream and doing cool stuff. Like, I love being a part of this club of directors and producers who have gone out and made something. They've taken a blank sheet of paper and now there's a movie that's there. It's a small organization of people, who have the chutzpah and the ability, to even get it done, much less if it's good. So I love it. It's a very brave and exciting group of people.
I think, too, people are more forgiving of an 18-year-old or 19-year-old making a mistake.
Sure.
Than they are of someone over 30. And I think that's another scary thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's much less romantic, when, a 40-year-old blows it, 25-year-old, you're just learning, right?
Sure.
So,
I think people are softer on them.
I just have to not blow it. That's the key.
Were there ever times when, let's suppose, things weren't going that well, that you regretted selling the house and trying to make this movie, knowing that you'd come from a position where you were doing well in that sense? You have property in LA. That's not hard. That's very hard to do. And then you're in the hovel.
Right.
Was there times when you said, was this all worth it?
No, because not to say that there aren't times where I haven't thought, well, that I've made bad choices, but not when it comes to the movies. The movies to me are like, I'm not married, I don't have kids, and most of my friends would be very offended if I compared my movie to them having kids. But to me, that's what it is. Like, once it's come to fruition, I would never regret anything that led to Weather Girl or 6 Month Rule or Cut to the Chase existing. Because it's not just mine, that's one of my favorite things about directing and, being the person that has to go out and raise the money, which is not something I enjoy, of course, few people do, but I build a team, and then they count on me. There's this paternal feeling that you have towards not only the movie itself, but the people who helped make it. You owe them something, it's like you put your sweat and art into making this feature better, and it's my job to protect that and to get it all the way through to the finish line. And like, I could never say, oh man, I wish I hadn't made Outside Sales, because like Outside Sales was the movie that made me a director. And the whole reason I became a director was a bad experience I had on this film called Manic. That I wrote Manic with another writer, and I really didn't like the director, and it was a really rough shoot for me. But it made me think, if this guy can do it, I can direct, and like, I don't know if I would have become a director if I hadn't have had that bad experience on that shoot. But I did, and now here I am,
Right.
Four
So,
features under my belt, and
Yeah.
8 produced screenplays, and like,
That's excellent.
I don't regret it. Like, there are things that I wish, would spin a different way, but like, who doesn't? Not that it was easy to raise money, because I'd only directed one feature before, and that feature had not made its money back, so I didn't have much of a track record.
How has experience impacted your financing movies?
Well, it's a good question. I think every movie is different when it comes to financing. It's like some movies lend themselves more to, like Weather Girl was very user-friendly. It was a romantic comedy. It was easy. It didn't offend anybody, So, not that it was easy to raise money, because I'd only directed one feature before, and that feature had not made its money back. So I didn't have much of a track record. But we had, Jane Lynch was a friend of Tricia O'Kelly's, and she had agreed to star in it. Once Jane Lynch is in something, everybody wants to be in it. So we had a really great cast built before we had any money, which is rare, and I've never seen that happen on anybody's movie. I think Jane Lynch, being the linchpin of that movie, was very specific to how that movie got financed. With 6 Month Rule, we found an investor who believed in me. Like, me and my business partner went to the same high school that he went to, and now he's an incredibly successful businessman. And like, I was pitching 6 Month Rule all over the place, and like, I don't even know if he read the script. He believed in what we were doing, and was interested in movies, so he financed that. And then Cut to the Chase was this great amalgam of just like $5,000 here, $5,000 here, until we raised over $100,000. All people who were just voting on or betting on us, and that was a really personal thing. Like, people just wanted a Shreveport movie from a Shreveport boy, and and they got it. So everyone is different though, but the only consistent is that you have to take every meeting. You have to talk to everybody, because you never know where that money's going to come from, and it's always a surprise to me. Like, we had an experience where I had a driver for a movie that I was on, and he drove me to set every day. Very cool guy, liked me very much. At the end of the movie, he's like, I have a friend that has connection to money. And I'm like, you should talk to my business partner. And we ended up, secret identity, financed this other movie with the friend of the driver. Like, who would have thought? But it comes from all over the place. But you gotta always be ready. And sometimes you have to ask the awkward question, will you give me money?
Right, and so with crowdfunding, it's good for, sounds like, part of it, but especially in this landscape, it sounds like it might be tougher now.
I think it'd be tough to, we raised $20,000, and it was hard. It's work. Every single day you gotta be out there, and you gotta be hitting people over the head with it all the time. And Paul Osborne always says that I don't hit hard enough, but I do. I hit really hard, and I was able to raise $20,000, but it was by hook or by crook. I pulled that money, from a ton of really great people. But I don't know how much more you can get without some kind of hook. You know what I mean? Like the perfect sweater, or whatever those things that make $1 million. I don't know how they do it, but I would love to get in on that. I think I probably wrote that in 5 weeks of just getting up and hammering away at it. I'll tell you one thing that also I think there's a great lesson in.
Blayne, your IMDb shows 12 writing credits. I'm sure you've written more scripts than are just
sure,
there. But of those films, which production taught you the most about writing, and why?
Oh, interesting. What we talked about a little bit earlier, the biggest lesson about writing is get up and do it. Is like, it is a job. I'm the kind of guy that I like a glass of wine, I like some music going. That's very romantic, and I'm sure Hemingway would be very proud, but that's really not how you get a script done or how you write. that mini scripts, and I am always writing. So it's like you got to get up, you got to spend time with your coffee, you got to look at it, and sometimes it's just sitting there, not being able to write anything that gets you 2 days later to where you are, where you can, answer the question and put it on paper. But I love working on all different genres. Like that's what's always fun to me, is getting hired to do, like a punch up on a kid's movie, or here's a horror film, or here's a family drama. But like I love getting to do all of them because I love movies, and it gets boring doing the same thing over and over again. So as far as like what taught me the most, I think it's just being thrown the random, here, I need you to do this suspense action film for me, and like sometimes you'll get a finished script and you'll fix it. Sometimes you'll get a paragraph and you'll execute it, It's like, so I don't know, all of them, I guess. It's just the process of writing. You just get better at it. And like that's something I tell young people all the time, is like you get better at writing the more you write. So you have to write. You know what I mean? All the time.
Well, I know with Manic, you said that kind of showed you that you wanted to direct for the various reasons.
Right.
And then with Weather Girl, it sounds like being in an uncomfortable situation really pushed you. How long did that script take, Weather Girl?
That script almost wrote itself. Like when I think of like the easiest writing experiences, that I think I probably wrote that in 5 weeks of just getting up and like hammering away at it. I'll tell you one thing that also I think there's a great lesson in directing your own script, because you find in the editing room, if there are flaws in your script, in your logic, in your plot line, you will find it in editing. And it's crazy to me. It's like 6 Month Rule. I got almost no notes on that script. Everybody dug that script. Like it was just one of those things, like sometimes as a writer, it's just like something will resonate and people just liked it. They're like, he talks a little too much, and but other than that, I'm like, great. But then we got into editing, and I have all of these structural problems. Like he has this moment where he realizes he loves the girl twice. No, why didn't I see that? Why didn't anyone who read the script say this moment happens twice? But nobody did, And like it's made me look at scripts a lot harder now, especially my own. Like, when is this moment in the movie? Like, and this has to be this special moment. It can't be duplicated. Like, because we had to move a lot of things around. I had this great editor, Abe Levy, who helped me, streamline that story that in a proper world should have been streamlined on the page. Know what I mean?
So with Weather Girl, how much do you think you really, I don't know, I'm just trying to envision that time for you. Do you think with some of the other productions you were more comfortable and it was harder to finish it? In terms of the script?
In terms of the script,
Mm-hmm.
I think, I didn't have TV. I had, it's really depressing. I had this season of The Office that I would watch over and over and over again. And so, like, I didn't really have anything to do except for sit there and write, which was by design. I didn't get cable. I just wanted to work. And it was actually easier then to write than, say, when you're happy with a girlfriend, and it's like that's the hardest time for me to write, is when I'm happy and busy. When I just moved back from New York, and I love living in New York because there's so much to do. It's hard for me to write in New York because I'm always distracted by things that are going on outside, or what's my roommate doing down there? It sounds like he's having fun. Are you drinking beer? Let me have some beer. So sometimes that lonely time it's actually easier.
So from being a bartender, I know you're probably busy making drinks and getting customers' orders, but you probably had some moments when you could see the LA crowd from this other perspective.
Yeah.
And how much did you see some of that in the patrons that went there? Even though you don't really know their personal lives
Right.
at all, and everybody's putting on this happy facade.
I needed to get out of Los Angeles after 6 Month Rule. After 6 Month Rule, I had kind of hit this... I was super saturated with Los Angeles. I've been here for a really long time, since I was 19 years old. Kid actor, went to UCLA, I've been in this town for a long time, and I just needed out because of, I think, what you're saying, because of, like, I saw the stereotypes, I saw the the LA shallowness or whatever, and I saw it in me, which was not good either, and it's not what I wanted. So I fled to New York, and enjoyed my time very much there, and I've just moved back here, for business-wise, and LA is different to me now. Like I have perspective, I see that, it's not the stereotypes that I was seeing, when I was here before. I was painting my own unhappy picture of it, but it's actually not that bad a place. I think I've just been here too long.
Sure, and I've heard the same thing about people that have been in New York and had to come here. So I think it's just a change of atmosphere. Yeah,
it's true. I have friends who've lived in New York much longer than I did. They're like, I'll tell them how much I love it. They'll be like, try 5 more years. And I'm like, well, maybe you should give it a break. Maybe you should go somewhere else. That's what I did.
But you're also coming here with a film that's coming out that has distribution. So I'm sure that's got to feel great.
It's awesome.
It's a different, you're coming from a different situation than...
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this movie business is really weird. It's really weird because it's like it has so many different levels. Like you start, you got the script and you got to try to raise the money, and then that's a whole thing, and then you get the money, and then you have to put it together, and then that's the whole thing. I love being on set. Being on set is my absolute favorite. I'm the best me when I'm on set. And then you wrap, and then you go into post-production, which I'm not my best me, but it's part of it. And then you have to get the distribution, and then you get to do the film festivals, and now you're here. Literally, we get a link later today for the pre-sales of Cut to the Chase, and then in 3 weeks, it'll be out, and everybody in America will be able to access it. And that's kind of like the end, really. We'll come out on DVD in June, so that'll be a whole nother thing that we'll deal with. But for all practical purposes, this journey is ending next month. And I'm just really excited, not for it to be over, but for this, pinnacle of here we are, we made it to the crest, good job, everybody. What's next?
Blayne, how many screenplays have you sold?
Sold, I would say maybe 5.
Okay,
5.
That's great.
Yeah, so something like that. I think only 2 of them have been made, though. You know what I mean? Normally I'm hired to write something, and then it gets produced that way, where they have a very specific plan for what's going to happen to it. Very few. I've got specs that are out there all over the place. They just float around, and I've got this great, I think it's a great script that I really love about rodeo, and I've got this other script about politics, kind of like a Casablanca set in politics, and they've both been out there, and people love them, and they just kind of float, waiting for lightning to strike and the movie to take off.
Well, how did you sell your first screenplay?
Dumb luck. I think as far as selling goes, I think you would count Manic as a sell, because Michael Bacall and I wrote that. We were roommates at the time, and we wrote the script together, and then we went to try to get it made with each of us in the lead roles. I had done this cowboy movie that Tommy Lee Jones directed, and I played Matt Damon's little brother, and I was 18. And we were in the middle of West Texas, Alpine, Texas, population 32. And so Matt Damon had to hang out with me, because otherwise I'd just be sitting in my Motel 6 by myself, and he's too nice a guy for that. So I got to pal around with this guy who was, every free moment was working on this script with his buddy, over the phone. They were exchanging faxes and stuff, and I got to read an early draft of Good Will Hunting, and I'm like, this guy's great. This is what I want to do. I want to write my own stuff, just like Matt's doing. And so I started working on a script, and my best buddy and I collaborated, and so we finished this movie, and then we wanted to get it made, and we ended up attaching this director, and then IFC came in and I guess bought the script for $1, something like that. Literally, here's $1. We now own the script, blah, blah, blah. And, but IFC didn't want me to act in it. They wanted a bigger name. So I agreed to take a smaller part, and they brought in this little-known actor named Joseph Gordon-Levitt to play my part. I mean, if you're going to be replaced by somebody, you really want it to be Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But he did a great job, I think. Anyways, that was the first one, and it was dumb luck. Like, I still don't know how that movie came together. It's like Mike's manager also represented this director who had ties with a distribution deal and pulled the financing together in some way. But that was it. And then we went to Sundance with that movie. So not overnight, but seemingly I went from, guy from commercials and the voice of Peter Pan, who's now a screenwriter at Sundance. And that was it. And then I went straight from that to like writing for other people and getting hired to do, touch-ups and punch-ups and, make things work.
How many screenplays would you say you've written total, whether they've been sold or whether they're floating out there?
Well, if you don't count the ones I wrote in my childhood, I wrote a really great movie called The Star Team, which is in no way derivative of Star Wars, but it might be a little bit. But like, I started writing scripts when I was a kid, and I would, go to shoot them and get about halfway through and lose interest. But as an adult, since Manic, I've probably written, 30, 40, probably 40, something like that.
40.
That sounds right.
Okay.
I mean, there's been months where I've written a script in 15 days because that's what was required in the job, and then I have had scripts that took me 3 years to get through. So always depending on what it is and what the job is.
And most of these came from relationships. I mean, it seems like you knew someone who knew someone, and that's how some.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when we got distribution, we were working with this producer named Stephen LaRue. Stephen LaRue, for Outside Sales. Stephen LaRue knew this producer named Mike Elliott. Mike Elliott Mike Elliott bought a script for me called Teach, and then hired me to write. And that's how it happens actually. Like, I'll do something or someone will buy something or option something and then say, well, can you fix this script for me? And that's really how it works. So I have like a handful of creatives who have me on speed dial, and like I'm happy to jump in and, fix their scripts.
Because we've had a lot of writers ask us, if I'm coming to LA from either overseas or another state, how do I get these contacts?
Yeah.
And it sounds like almost by maybe even the acting world, it sounds like that you've built this creative Rolodex. I know, Rolodex, I'm really dating myself with that word. No one even
I never
knows
would have
what a
thought
Rolodex.
twice. I think we can both date ourselves there. I mean, and my career is so strange. Like, I am not the archetypal, I'm a writer, I'm with CAA, and CAA gets me the meetings, and I come in and pitch. It's like, that's never really been how my career works on any level, It's like the lead roles I've gotten in films have been phone calls, they've not been auditions. The auditions are the smaller things that are, peppered into my resume, but like the things that changed where I was in my career were always phone calls, always like, Blayne, I want you to do this thing for you. Blayne, I wrote this part for you, and the same thing with writing. Like the stuff, the best paying jobs, the jobs that have moved me to a higher echelon have always been like, okay, this guy's gonna call you in 5 minutes, he's a good friend of mine, I told him that you're great, don't blow the interview, get the job. And I get the job, It's all who you know, is what they say. But I think in my career, it's more than it is in most people's. I don't know why.
Would you say, though, that a writer should even take, it sounds like such a traditional route, get an agent, do all, you were talking about antiquated before with distribution and stuff. So it sounds like because you knew a bunch of creative people and you were also acting and doing auditions and all that it really helped to form these people that would call you because they knew they could trust you. And that's not an easy thing here. So for someone that's new coming here as a writer, what would you recommend? Because we get a lot of questions like that and we don't always know what to tell them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, I've never had any luck with the whole, like, sending a cover letter or, like, here's a pitch of my script. Every agent I've ever gotten has been through a connection, So I think it's about getting into that world in whatever way that you can. If it was an actor, I would be like, take acting classes, join a theater company. I think it's not different with writers. I'm just not sure exactly what that organization is. There are clubs, there are, the Blacklist has this, website that you can become a member of, send your scripts in, they'll read it and give notes and stuff like that. But be a writer, tell people you're a writer. Go to places where writers go. You know what I mean? I mean, there are great things. The WGA offers these amazing things. Now, a lot of people can't get in if they're not WGA, but there are things that you can go and buy tickets to and go to places that, successful writers go and meet those people, because those are the people that can help you.
Right. Yeah, it's
Film festivals are a good idea too.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, I mean, for you, you're an actor and a director, and it sounds like you really get energy from being around people. But I know a lot of writers are more hermit-like.
Yeah.
So that's probably.
I mean, yeah, and I dig that, but that's tough, because you're not going to make any contacts being hermit-like. It's just like the writing. Like, I want candles and wine before I write, but I also have to get the script done. So and there are tons of competitions that festivals run, or writing festivals. So you win a couple of those awards, that can get you some nice intros, I have friends that have had some success with that.
How do you structure your screenplays? Is there a certain format you follow, formula?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so there are the rules. You got your rules. You got your Save the Cat rules. Your Screenwriter's Bible's rules. And the truth is, there is this kind of backlash happening right now that I think is totally legit, because now every script is exactly the same. Like, if you know the structure, you can pretty much call by the moment, when something will happen. It's like, oh no, the bottom's going to fall out right now. And I think it's very important to know the rules. I also think that it's also important to try to break them if you can. You know what I mean? It's not a requirement on everything. Sometimes the rules are your friends. Pretty much all the time, the rules are your friends. And the truth is, when you do break those little rules, those little structural guidelines, people don't know why, but something's wrong. And that's pretty much, that's a good, 6-month rule has a very strange first act structure. I did it on purpose because I wanted it to be a little different, but we made the movie that way, and then in editing we would show the movie, and the beginning was dragging because, the inciting incident wasn't happening until 25 minutes instead of 15 minutes. Do you know what I mean? These rules, we know them up here, we know them in here, so it's when they're broken, something's amiss. So you have to know what you're doing when you break them, if that makes any sense.
It does. What are some of the other rules that you, because you said there's this backlash going on right now. I'm just curious, what are some of these other?
Well, a lot of them are about when things happen in a script. Beginning of the second act, things are going this way, and then, things come crashing down, but then it's going to be okay, and then, no, they're not, but then at the end, it all comes back together. I mean, that's very vague, they're really more specific, but I think the backlash from writers is that I don't want every movie to be the exact same, structurally. I want it to be different, and I think, there's some, I'm trying to think of a good example of movies that play with that a lot, but some movies are just about the characters, and it's a slice of life, and you don't. I'm working on a romantic comedy that is about a guy who just turned 40, and I want it to be a slice of life, but in the rules, he shouldn't have to go for something. He should be actively pursuing something from the inciting incident until the end of the movie. That gives the movie a drive and a power. And every time I'm writing, especially for somebody else, that's something that's very important to me. But I went and watched 16 Candles as kind of because I'd like for this grown-up movie to be kind of like 16 Candles, only different. Nobody, there's nothing happening. There's no drive at all. It's literally just a slice of life. It's just she's not trying to accomplish anything. And I love that movie. So that's an example of that movie would be very difficult to make right now unless you had a John Hughes, if Cameron Crowe said, I'm going to do this. they would let him. But like that's not a script that would sell because it's not following the rules. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I'm just trying to think back to like, I know the sister was like having the wedding and everybody was forgetting about
all this
her
stuff is
and- yeah,
happening.
right,
There's
right, right.
lots of action happening, but our main character, our protagonist, is not forwardly driven to do anything.
She's sulking.
She's sulking. She's just mad that nobody remembers her birthday. She's not trying to fix that, you know? And like, again, like normally it's great to have a protagonist who's actually trying to do something. But in this particular case, you can break that rule and the movie's just fine. It's just different, you know?
Off camera, Blayne, you were talking about ideas being in the ether, the zeitgeist, about writing something that someone else is already writing and you don't even know, they don't even know. So can you talk about the story?
I just think every idea has a moment, right? Like we're all watching the same stuff. We're all on Facebook. We're seeing the same news articles. The same sensory input is coming across our brains, and like you take a couple of steps as a screenwriter, you're always trying to find a hook, find a new idea, find something. And I think it's indefinable. I really do. But like, ideas have a moment. So my story is that I had come up with this script, which was a supernatural thriller kind of thing, and it was a jumping off from the Da Vinci Code, which was very successful at the moment. And so I had this idea about like this clone of Christ idea. That was the big hook, and it's a really good script, actually. Still is. Anyways, but like this little action mystery thing. So agent flipped out. Loved it. Fantastic. This is a long time ago when we printed scripts. So I printed out, 50 of the scripts, and we had to pay for that. I don't know if you're aware of that. But in the smaller agencies, I had to go and print 50 scripts. So anyways, feel bad for me. So I printed these 50 scripts. I take them to my agent. I drop them off. And then I go to work at this bar. And I walk into the bar, and the bartender, who I work with, has a Hollywood Reporter on the bar. And I'm like, what's this? He's like, oh, I got hired to write a script today for this big production company, big secret idea, secret script, and I got hired for it. Fantastic, you're out of the bar business, congratulations, And I look at the article, and I think the title is interesting, and it sounds a lot like what would be the title of my movie. And I'm like, what's your movie about? And he's like, oh, this clone of Christ thing. And I didn't tell him the idea. The idea wasn't even his. He was hired to do that job. But the same day, I'm telling you, like the day that I printed this stuff out to go around town was 2 days after he closed a deal and it came out in the Hollywood Reporter. And I think it's like that all the time. You have these competing movies that are happening at the same time. We need 2 movies about volcanoes. That was a long time ago. 2 movies about, I can't think, but there's lots of movies like that. And people racing to the finish line because ideas have these moments and they're not stolen off each other. They're each of us going our own way with the sensory input that's available, and we end up with the same conclusion.
So the moral is then, if you're going to write something, do it now.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
Hurry.
And get it out there.
The moral is you better hurry. That's
because you never talked to him about.
No, never did. And it wasn't even his idea. He applied to get this writing position that was like an open writing position. Like it was top secret, but like that's what my agent thought. He thought that I had told this guy, and I'm like, this guy just went in for a meeting, and they said, put together a pitch for this, and he did, and he got the job. I could have gotten the job probably with my script had things worked out differently. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know. I think it's funny, the coincidence. And it's not really coincidence. It's like if I tell 1,000 people the same facts, somebody is going to come up with the same idea that I have.
Right, and also too, world events.
Yeah, exactly.
Shaping our mindset and what we're kind of gearing towards.
Right.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. And so once you knew that, when you went home that night, what was life
I mean,
like
that was
at the Hubble?
honestly, like, I've had, some crushing disappointments. That was probably in the top 3. It was bad, because, like, you spend so much time on a script, and then, like, you give it to an agent, and the agent would be like, you have any Westerns? I mean, that's normally what happens, is like, you're like, this script is hot. And they'll read it and be like, there's a movie that just sold a couple of weeks ago that's kind of this kind of tone. What else you got? Like, well, I just spent, 9 months making this for you. So, like, it's incredibly disappointing to put work into something and then have a response. Like the biggest criticism I've normally gotten from my agents is that my scripts are not high concept enough. Like I like small stories. I like stories with like 4 or 5 people, you know, and all of my movies that I've made have really been about 3 people. And, you know, there are ancillary characters, of course, but like it's a small little world. And that's interesting to me. Like my instinct is not to go and write Independence Day, you know, where you have, you know, a general's having this and a reporter's over here and, you know, then you have characters on the other side of the world. That's not my thing. So when an agent sees money signs when they look at one of my scripts, that's a rarity and something that I'm like, oh, great, fantastic. You're happy, I'm happy. Let's, you know, go sell it. And then for the rug to be pulled out from under without the script even getting a shot, that was hard. I went to the bathroom, I got sick, I freaked out on my manager basically saying, what am I going to do? You know, and he's like, what do you mean what are you going to do? You're going to go home and you're going to start writing something else. I took a couple of days though. I had the wine the next time that I did write.
Right, and the candles. Yeah.
And the candles, yeah. I did some incense, you know, a calming kind of. You know.
A sage clearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I need to clean this.
You said something a moment ago about, that was brilliant again, you can't luck into a writing job. Maybe with acting you can, just because you have that look and you could play this person or whatever, but you can't with writing. Can we talk about that?
Well, I mean, it's just like, I think there's you assume that as a writer, you've put a lot of time into this. Like you can't just get off the turnip truck and be like, I'm a writer. You have to have written something, and someone has to have read that and said, you know what, this is really good. You should write more. You know what I mean? And I think I love writing. I love being a part of that community, you know, of people who are willing to take that journey, and like, it's because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of lonely time. It's a lot of being productive. And, you know, it's like oftentimes you'll see actors who haven't put that much work in, you know, or you'll see the actor who's put no work in but just has that thing, you know what I mean? And you're just like, man, if you didn't have that thing, but you do, okay, fair enough. But like, you know, with writing, you can't just do that. You have to, no matter how talented you are, you have to work at it. You have to get better at it all the time. And so I feel like writers kind of give each other like a pass of like, like, oh yeah, cool. You know, we're both writers. You know, because it's a small club, and it's not something that's easy, and we know that about what each other does. Know what I mean?
You said before when you were younger that sometimes you got tired of certain scripts, and you know this was when you were like 10 or whatever, so it's a big difference. But how do you stay with something so you don't get tired of it in terms of reworking it, doing more drafts, knowing that the idea is really good,
right?
But
I mean, it's hard. It's hard, and I have this thing that as I get older is becoming more defined in who I am. Of like, there's a lack of time. Like, I don't have time to waste on something that is not going to go, right? So what helps me now, it's a double-edged sword. I like to write on something I'm going to make, because I know that I'm going to make it. I know it's going to continue getting better because it has to, right? Get the notes, you know, and it also that's the motor in it, because we want to shoot this summer, so I'll keep writing on it and getting feedback and, you know, trying to make it as complete as humanly possible before we shoot. Downside of that is I should be writing more specs. Like, you know, everybody should be writing spec scripts all the time in order to sell them. But that has been a disappointing path to me, because I have these scripts that I love, that I worked very hard on, it's gotten tons of great coverage, but they're floating out there, just floating, waiting for somebody to decide to make them, you know? And that's not as, for me, it's not as good a fuel as, well, I'm gonna make this. I'm going to make this in 4 months, so it better be good. You know what I mean? Like that whole of, like, I have to keep working on it if I want to make a good product.
Well, you also say you're your best Blayne when you're on set.
Yeah.
Which I've heard from other actors as well.
Yeah.
That they love being on sets. That's where all their friends are. That's what they live to do. So maybe in some sense, it's because you have the track record.
Yeah.
You finished them. A lot of people don't finish them.
Yeah, it's true.
Very commendable.
I'm in a good position now where right now, I'm either being paid to write a script, which makes it very easy. I have to do this. I have to sit down and, write, or I'm writing towards something that I want to make. Like, I need to be more adventurous and say, like, all right, I'm going to take the next 4 months and write something to sell. But I always get distracted back on the things that I want to make.
Right, and you said something about you were told that your films aren't high concept enough. So you think it's more character driven versus plot driven?
I think so. Yeah, I feel like my voice is very dialogue based, very character driven. Like, I care less about the structure, the rules, than I care about whether it's something I want to watch. You know what I mean? Like, I love the movie Broadcast News. Right? Broadcast News just kind of meanders. It's like, James Brooks, right? Like, just kind of hanging out, like, with these interesting characters, and you get to watch, Albert Brooks, be neurotic, and Holly Hunter, this amazing performance, but, like, it's all over the place. I love that. I have to rein myself in from doing that kind of thing all the time.
When writing a story, whether you are the hero in it or you have someone else, a heroine, how do you take this hero or protagonist out of their comfort zone and test them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I love that. Like, Weather Girl is about exactly that. You take this girl who's incredibly successful and famous, and you drop her into having to sleep on her brother's couch and having to wait tables, and I love that. I love seeing people out of their element and seeing how they go. But yeah, I don't know like what the process is. Like, it's just like, what kind of challenges can I give to this person? How can I really get to see what they're made of? Conflict. If it's going along too well, something's got to be messed up.
Right. Well, I'm thinking of, like, the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell, and talking about how they have this drive in them, which in some sense reminds me of what you're doing, is to make these films. But then there's going to be things that are going to get in their way,
right?
And test them, and ultimately they've got to sort of prevail. So do you see yourself as the hero in most of what you write, even if it's a female character? There's parts of you.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely an actor's writer. Like, that's how I come at it. I always think about parts that I would love to play, and that's all of them. It's like Weather Girl, to me, the part that Tricia O'Kelly played was a great part, a part that I wrote the speeches for, like, hearing them in my brain, me saying them, obviously it's metaphoric, but, like, I want these to be parts that actors want to sink their teeth into. I think Cut to the Chase has some great example of that. We've got these two female characters that are just, like, so different and so interesting. I think they have some of the best lines, and it gets me excited about it. I write for me. I want speech. I want them to be as excited about the things that they say as I am. If that makes sense.
It does. What do you think is the function of a story?
I like. I mean, it's all escapism, isn't it? Like, even if it's not, even if it's about looking at yourself, it's about getting to know something else and being going away for a while into this story, and I like that. I like Cut to the Chase, to me, is total escapism entertainment. Like, what I want is people on the edge of their seat eating popcorn, and then at the end of the movie go, "Whoa, that was awesome." That's what I want. It's like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not, touching on, deep emotional, core, or talking about any issues. It's just fun. Now, there are other movies that are, that do that, but still, you're supposed to be going away and following something that's interesting. There are all these rules that we can follow that help make that story compelling. But I don't care how you get there. The key is for me to care, I just need to give a damn about what's happening on the screen, either about the characters or the narrative or where it's happening or why it's happening, but for some reason I need to be locked in and not feel like I'm wasting 2 hours of my life.
Can you tell us about a time you went to see a film and maybe you weren't having the best day and it completely changed you walking out of the theater?
I saw Pulp Fiction in New York City in 1994, and I had never seen anything like that in my life, and it made me never want to write again, because I thought, I will never be able to do that. And I think about it all the time. Still, to this day, I think about walking out of that movie and being like, just blown away with that cinematic experience. And like, you know, it inspired me, even though I was intimidated like crazy. It really did set something for me to work towards. It's still way out of reach for me. I think it's just a fantastic movie experience. But that time in my life in New York City, seeing that, it made me want to write like hardcore, you know?
We talk about outlining. Do you do an outline before you write?
I'd rather not, but usually that's required for the job. Like if I'm getting paid for it, they'll want to know. Right these days, to get hired to write a script, you pretty much have to write the script. Like you have to write like a 35-page outline for a 90-page script. You know, turn it in before you can get hired to write the script. So when I'm writing for other people, I do whatever it takes to make them comfortable with it, which normally involves an outline. Me, it's kind of like, for me, I'm not a musician, but I feel like it's like just jazz, you know? I feel when it's time for a change. I can feel when, you know, we need to know more about a character. It's like, it's very, my way of working, it's very artificial to say, at this point, on page 12, we need to learn that Charlie has a secret. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know if that secret is. I'm like, do I make it up now, or do I wait until I get to know who Charlie is and, you know, write that in? And like, I feel like the music of it, I just know on page 12, maybe there's something he's not sharing with us. Maybe it's this, you know? It's just way more organic, and I feel like it flows. A lot of times with outlines, I'll find when I'm writing the actual script, I won't feel it going the way that the outline was. You know what I mean? So it's either like I do something false. I'm suddenly writing, for me, a lot of times, especially the rewrite process for other people's work, is taking a round peg and putting it into a square hole. It's like, here's a movie. This is an actual true story. I had written a film that was a beach sport kind of romantic comedy that was set in Thailand. The note I got from the studio was, great, love it, only now it's in Bulgaria and it's Christmas. So my rewrite was to completely and utterly change the entire, you know, scenery and what's happening, right? Round peg, square hole. And it's like a Rubik's Cube kind of problem. It doesn't necessarily lead to good writing, right? Like when you're trying to problem solve instead of telling the most compelling story. That's what I hate about outlining. That's why I don't like being pushed into a corner by some random decision I made 3 months ago when I was just trying to make people feel comfortable about what the movie was going to be. Does that make sense? I can ramble about it for the next 2 hours because it's something that I struggle with a lot.
When you finish a script, what's your process? Let's suppose you've gone through several drafts and it's for yourself.
Yeah.
This is not writing for someone else. And you're like, you know what, I feel good. I've had a couple people look at it. Then what's your process?
Well, what's cool about being able to write the movie and then make it and stuff, which is my favorite, of course, is that it's never done. Like we get a whole new process. Like once we get a cast, I get notes from the actors. I do a read through with as much of the cast as I can pull together. Then I get notes. Then we talk about that. Then we get on set and we'll talk about it then. What's great about being in charge is that I know I'm not Shakespeare. I know that there's always room for improvement, you know, and the key to being a good project manager or a good director is like being able to listen to everybody's suggestions and then make a clear, distinctive choice and then stick with that choice. You know what I mean? But like, I can't tell you how many times I've been really happy with a scene and gotten on set, and the actor has said something funnier, and I've just been like, well, damn it. There you go. You get the line that's going to be in the trailer, and I did not write it. I mean, I had Dave Foley in 6 Month Rule from Kids in the Hall, and that guy, I mean, first of all, the only actor to ever come up to me and ask if he could do a different line reading. Like, most actors just change the line, and I certainly am not offended by that. You know, it's like I've done it myself. But he came up to me and he's like, Blayne, I have a line suggestion. Would you like to hear it? And I'm like, Dave, yes, I would. And I can go ahead and tell you that you can probably say whatever you want. And he's hilarious. And he elevated every single one of his scenes, which were pretty funny to begin with. But like that, and I get to take credit for that because I'm the director.
Yeah,
I let him say that. See, that's how smart I am. I cast him, and then I let him be him.
Do you use any screenwriting software? Final Draft?
I'm a Final Draft guy.
You are?
Yeah,
Okay.
Final Draft is the way to go as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so can you take us through the process of using it? I'm just curious.
You know what? It's just become so instinctual. Like I was writing. A buddy of mine was working on a script, and he asked for help, and he sent it to me in Word, and it was so frustrating that I just transferred it all over, wrote it in Final Draft, and then gave it back to him and said, you can put it back in Word if you want, but like, I'm gonna write in my format. I just, I like the way it looks. I understand the borders, it's like I've been doing this for a long time now. I've been probably writing scripts for over 20 years. And that's crazy to me that I've been doing anything for 20 years, but I have. And at least 18 of those has been with Final Draft. So it's just my quill and parchment, you know what I mean?
Right. So what's your advice to writers who don't want to use any type of software? They just want to write it in Pages or a Word document?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of like, it's like method acting, It's like, I really don't care how you get there, as long as you get there, but I think it's easier with Final Draft, and it is the accepted industry standard, so you don't have to worry about it looking funny, because executives, the number one thing that you need to not do, this is the biggest landmine, don't look like an amateur, especially if you're an amateur. So, like, if you're just starting out, your title page needs to look right. You need to, your borders need to look right. It needs to be well structured. It needs to not be numbered. The scenes need to not be numbered. That is a shooting script, not a selling script. Like all of these little things that you don't know, are a red flag, because a lot of readers and or development people, they're not that savvy, right? And so they're looking for a reason to own their leather chair. And if they can spot something that you've done that's amateurish, they'll throw you right out. There aren't many, like, the guys that are making these decisions, there aren't that many of them that are like savvy and have been around the block a time or two and it's like, I found a diamond in the rough. They're just finding the diamonds that other people have found. You know what I mean? They're like, he liked this, so I like it too. It's great, because everybody's worried about getting fired. I think that's accurate. Am I going to ruin my career in LA by this interview here?
No, I think you're saying that it's good to look professional, and and a lot of times you give yourself away by not knowing something that
And nobody gives you the benefit of the doubt in this business. Like, nobody. There's just too many people. There's too many people with experience. There's too many people clawing. So, like, nobody's going to be like, hey, there's some typos, but man, what a story. They just won't, unless you are, like Cameron Crowe or Quentin Tarantino, and turn in a script where they've changed the margins. That's the only way you get the benefit of the doubt. If they don't know you, no, they are looking for a reason to hate your script. That's another reason why this structure thing is so important, especially when you're first starting out, because if you make a choice to change that structure, they will not assume it was a choice. They will assume it was ignorance. And they won't get through page 10. Like, if nothing happens by page 15, if the inciting incident is not there on page 15, writer doesn't know what he's doing, even if that's not true at all. I think that's an absolute true statement.
How do you choose the titles of your films?
Oh, I'm terrible at titles. I'm terrible at them. That's not at all what I'm good at. I'm giving Paul Osborne way too much credit in this interview, but he named Cut to the Chase. Like, I was looking for a title and he suggested it, and I was so mad. I'm just like, he just came just like that. Like, he didn't even work on it. He's like, what about Cut to the Chase? I was looking for something like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, or, you know, which I got stuck in my head as like a perfect title for a movie like this. And I really like that movie. So I'm like, something like that that's fun and, you know, throwback to like 70s kind of movies. And he came up with it right off the top of his head. But yeah, like, again, I'm not afraid to use my smart friends for all of their smarts and then put my name on it.
Well, like Weather Girl.
Yeah, Weather Girl kind of named itself, to be honest, because it's a kind of a coming of age story, you know. Weather Girl, and she's, you know, trying to be a woman instead of, you know, a girl who's taken care of by this, you know, she's growing up. And so it was super easy, like, because the Weather Girl's kind of demeaning, you know, and she grows up throughout the movie. That one actually, that was me. But that came, so did, you know, Manic was a very easy thing to name. 6 Month Rule was not. It was awful, an awful time naming that movie.
Why?
I just, like, you know, like the writing books, they'll tell you that, you know, you come up with the name, the log line, and the poster before you even start writing. I'm not really that. I had this vague idea of what I wanted it to be. I just seen too many romantic comedies that I thought were not at all real. And I think real life is funny too. So, like, I wanted to make kind of a non-rom-com about, you know, a single guy and like all the stuff that single people do, you know, to kind of like maintain their singleness, or, you know. And he has all these like little, you know, things, like he never spends the night because it sends the wrong message, and, you know, and 6 Month Rule is kind of like the theme of his urge to stay detached, I guess. And yeah, and it just, we kind of backed our way into it. And, you know, part of it was that the number being at the beginning of the movie puts it right at the beginning of VOD and things like that. I have a lot of filmmaker friends right now who are dealing with that, where the distributor wants them to have a name that's A, B, C, like right at the beginning. Filmmaker we know is dealing with that right now, actually, where he had to change his name from his movie, which is like a U, to an A or B, and he's looking for it. And it seems silly, but like when you don't have names, it can really be the difference of thousands of dollars, you know?
That's really interesting.
So it was the 6 month rule, and we changed it with the S, and then we changed it to the number 6 month rule, and it was all business reasons. But yeah, like when I named it, I had to go back and rewrite the entire movie, making 6 month rule a more, you know,
right,
pertinent thing. But like, you know, that's the thing. Like I know a lot of writers who struggle with the business side and the art and like the combination of the two. To me, as a producer as well, I understand. Like, I want the movie out there. I want people to see it. I want, you know, all of those business requirements to be fulfilled. I also want the movie to have integrity. And, you know, so it's like, it's easier for me because I can balance the two of them. I'm not listening to somebody putting arbitrary rules on me. You know what I mean? Like, if I thought that naming it 6 month rule would ruin it, and that it needed to be called, you know, the Xavier Files or something, you know, then I would have done that. But I get to weigh both and make a choice, as opposed to a lot of writers who are working for somebody else who are just like, ah. It's frustrating because I do that a lot too. I do write for a lot of people, and there are times where I'm just like, I think this is a mistake to do this. But it's your film, and I will write what you'd like. And very seldom do they listen to my experience. They have their idea, they want what they want. So I execute it for them, and then I say, it's not a good call, but okay.
Well, that's being an employee in a sense,
right.
Even if you're self-employed, yeah.
That's right. And when I write for somebody else, I am executing their vision. That's what the job is.
Yeah. When you finish a screenplay on spec, what's protocol when you're done?
Well, you finish it up, you get all your buddies to read it and tell what you think, because this is like, you only get one first read on that. And that's hard for me, because I like to get it out there, see what the agent thinks, you know, as soon as possible. And it's a mistake. You should hold it until it's done. I have trouble taking that advice. But you send it to your agent or producers or whoever your contacts are in that world, and you wait to see what they say. I mean, it's pretty simple. You have very little power over it once they take it. I have this one script that has been overwhelmingly positive feedback and notes, and has been at one agency for about 8 months, going through actors, big movie stars reading it, or there are people reading it anyways, and we'll wait for 9 weeks, and then we'll hear, well, Matthew McConaughey passed. But that's okay, we're going to Woody Harrelson. Okay. 9 weeks later, well, Woody Harrelson passed, but that's okay, we're going to Josh Brolin. And it just sits there and people read it, and I do nothing. I just sit, and I'm happy that these agencies and this talent has something of mine to read. Maybe they'll see my name on it.
What if you don't have the agent or a manager to give it to? I mean, if you're, let's say, a new writer that doesn't have a foundation, hasn't been in LA that long. Yeah,
well, there are online resources. Blacklist is one of them, where you can send in the script and have it covered, have it read. Coverage is this thing where, it's like a book report on your script, where all the studios do that, and they'll give you a little score, and you can pay people to do it professionally. But I would say that right now, these competitions that a lot of, like, I know Austin Film Festival has a very prestigious one. But sending your script in, if you win a couple of awards, that's something that might get some leeway in sending it to an agency. Like normally I would say that almost never works. I've never heard of anybody being read because of a query letter. But if you have awards, maybe it would work. I mean, look, there's no set way to do anything in this business. Like, everything is like a twisty, turny, chutes and ladders kind of thing. So you just try everything. Just throw everything at it. And I mean, that's how I finance movies. That's how I got all my movies done. You just try everything and see what works out, and be open to something working out in a way that you didn't expect.
If you weren't making these films, what would you be doing?
It's a good question. I think about that a lot. I feel like I always had a dream that I would be like in behind the scenes in politics. Like, that's kind of what that political film spin is about the guy behind the guy, kind of working the world.
Grooming him.
Yeah, yeah, trying to make good things happen from afar. And I don't know, I like that idea. I mean, I liked it a lot better about 3 months ago. But, I think there's a need for it, and people that are willing to fight, to get in the game and be brave and, stand for something. I like all that stuff. And I try to do that on my sets. I try to do that with my films, but we need it just in the world. We just need people that are willing to take a stand.
Well, in a lot of sense, that is a director, the person that you're talking about. I don't know, it's not a spin doctor, but it's somebody that's, grooming and giving advice and to a politician.
It's a little more paternal, I guess, than, most spin doctors or whatever, but it's the same thing. It's like, I'm taking care of my guy. Like, my actors, they're my guys, Right. It's like, I'm not going to let them get hurt. I'm not going to let them look bad. Like, we're trying to do something bigger, and what I want is, the raising tide raises all boats. That's what we want. We want everybody going up with us. You know what I mean? That's kind of off topic, but that's what I feel like the job of the director is like, you're protecting the movie and you're protecting your team. And if anything goes wrong in that, it's a director's job to either nip it in the bud, or fix it.
Well, so that whoever that spin doctor, more paternal spin doctor role is, my sense is if you really wanted to do it, you would have done it by now, because you strike me as the type that sets out to do whatever you plan.
Yeah, well, I love what I do. I really love what I do. I mean, like getting to tell stories, and then having a team that you believe in, that believes in you. I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. It really is. And it means a lot to me. I could do this if I could make a movie a year. I'd be a happy guy, It's like doing a movie every 4 years is trying, but, a lot of people haven't done 4 movies, you know?
No,
I have, and I love doing it. I'll do it as long as people let me.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you're about to turn 40, or
I'm about to turn 41.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
you're a very young 40.
Hey, thank
so,
you.
But you know, and you recalled how wow, I did something for 20 years. I'm sure over that course of time, you've considered doing other things, but because you love it and you're willing to stick it out,
Yeah.
whether it's a challenge or whether it's great, you've realized that this is what I'm probably supposed to be doing.
I kind of, you know, I had this moment where I was thinking about like where I am, where do I want to be? You know, I guess that's stuff that you do when you turn 40, you know? And I was like, you know, I've kind of gone too far to throw it away. You know, like I'm not really interested in changing what I do, but like now I have, you know, like I said, I have 4 features, I have 8 produced screenplays. Like people will follow me and make a movie because I've done it before. And, you know, what I'm going to do, be like, well, I'm kind of at the top of this whole indie film game, so I'm going to set off and teach history now. It's just, I feel like I'm pretty locked into this. And, you know, I like it, and I keep working and, you know, doing new things. I'm doing a play this summer that will be some musical, so that's new for me.
Nice.
But
Here
like,
in
you know,
LA? Sorry.
no, it's in Louisiana, you know, at this Equity House down there. But like, I have not done a musical since I was, you know, 9 years old. So I love doing new things and like challenging myself and like trying to keep the art popping and do things that scare me, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really important.
I think so too.
Yeah, and with that comes some low times and then some really high times, because those lows are so bad. And
Yeah.
and then when stuff works, you go, it was worth it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and you know, I have friends who don't understand my life at all, you know, because the peaks are so high and the valleys are very low, but like the peaks are great, man. Like, I tell you what, like standing, you know, being in Park City, standing next to Mark Harmon, you know, at a film festival, or like
pretty cool.
being in the middle of Texas making a movie with Sam Shepard, you know, or like wearing a tuxedo at a red carpet event in a movie palace that was built in 1925 for Cut to the Chase in Shreveport, Louisiana. I mean, that stuff is my bucket list is pretty good. You know what I mean? You know, it's got its downsides too, but like I really like the ride.
And with that, if someone were to take that snapshot of that tuxedo moment on the red carpet, they probably would think, wow, this is cool. Like,
Yeah.
But they don't see all the hard work that got
Right.
you to that point, and the crowdfunding. How long was the campaign?
What is 3 months normally, something like that?
3 months? Okay. So all that took to
Yeah.
get that money, plus you said you had some extra money.
Oh yeah, then
you know,
was raising money from that point, from the time that we got the Kickstarter money, all the way until I raised more money for distribution 3 weeks ago.
Right. So if you were to take that snapshot, so it's a movie of Blayne
Yeah.
Weaver's life,
Yeah.
and then you backtrack though, and there was a lot of at the computer alone,
Yeah.
without the wine, with the coffee.
Right.
You know.
Well, you know, I mean, what's funny is like that's kind of our reality now, isn't it? You know, with like the Facebook and the Instagram and the Twitter, is like I show people what I want them to see, you know, and not exactly what, like it's just I'm marketing me like I market my films. And I think it's very important, and I think that a lot of filmmakers don't do it to their detriment. Because we mentioned earlier the brand, my brand, you know. I feel like it has a lot to do with why people will buy the movie, you know, will show up for the Q&A, will, you know, and you gotta keep that marketing going as well. A friend of mine runs a theater, you know, and we do very much the same thing, you know. He's a theater guy, you know, I'm mostly in film, but like we're doing the same thing all the time. We're, you know, telling people what our company is, what it stands for, what kind of work we're doing, and why you should want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? And like, I know filmmakers who's just like, I don't know how you raise money. I'm like, well, if you try and you learn, then you have the power. Otherwise, you have to find somebody with power and ask them, you know, for permission. If you take it yourself, you know, I don't have to ask permission for anyone, you know? And it's a great place to be as far as art goes.
Why do you think a lot of filmmakers don't want to do it? Just because it's time consuming, it's scary?
Yes, I think absolutely. I mean, it's kind of gross, you know. It's like there's lots of stuff that goes into, you know, dealing with the financing that is not Fonzie, you know. Like there's, I mean, you know, Fonzie shows up. I did this work with an actor once, and I had just done a Kickstarter kind of thing, and I was, you know, and he's just like, man, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't, you know, put myself out there and ask for money and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, the good thing is if I make a movie, nobody remembers that I bugged them on Facebook. You know, they just remember, hey, I gave $5 to this guy. There's my movie, you know? But people are really reluctant to go out on a limb. Everybody wants to be the sure thing, you know? And I just... It really is hard. When you're seeking money, everybody says no until they don't. You know, and that's really what it is. But like that freedom, that being able to be the person who, like, I put this financing together, you know, this is my baby. So I don't have to listen to a studio who says, actually, Blayne, we're going with somebody who's with CAA and is a little hotter than you right now for this directing gig. Thanks a lot for the script. And they can do that. They can just, you know, push me right out the door. But nobody pushes baby in the corner. You know what I mean? I messed that line up. But anyways, I like it. I like it. And I just hope that financiers keep believing in me.
And just real quickly, what is the Fonzie analogy? I love this.
Yeah. well, I mean, you know, we were talking earlier about LA versus New York, and I feel like LA is a very Fonzie culture. They want, you know, somebody to come in and just, I didn't practice at all. I haven't had time to look at this, but I'm just really cool. I might be cooler than you are, you know? And New York, they really want the kind of nerdy, you know, I've been preparing for this meeting for 6 months. You know, they want to know that you've got it together and that you take it seriously. I just think it's a funny combo. And I've been lucky enough to work with some really great actors who, you know, can do both, you know, or make it look easy breezy, just pop in. Like Patrick J. Adams is a great example. He's on Suits now, and I've done 2 movies with Patrick, and he's totally Fonzied out. And then in his hotel room the night before he works, he is Marlon Brandoing that stuff, practicing, you know, getting ready. But then everything's just as easy breezy and, you know, natural as could possibly be. You know.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's great. Any millennials out there, watch Happy Days to see who Fonzie is, and you'll know what we're talking about.
Fonzie, I don't get it.
Grew up on that show.
Right.
Okay. Blayne, you're a writer, director, actor, producer. Which of these would you say is your first passion?
Well, my first passion was acting. That's how I came to all this. I love, you know, dropping in the middle of it and you know, being able to create a character and whatnot. But like, you know, it's tough to call. I love writing for other people. I love acting for other people. But like, I love directing my things because I get to build this team. I get to, you know, find talent to elevate the project. And, you know, a lot of people think it's weird that I oftentimes will act and direct at the same time. To me, that's how I came to it to begin with, you know, was like doing plays and directing them, you know, when I was in junior high. You know, I'm acting and then stopping and being like, all right, let's do this. And it's the same way now. Like, I'm a kid in a candy store, you know, especially I get to choose the actor standing across from me. I've worked with Patrick Day twice, you know, 2 movies in a row. We worked together, and we worked together great. So I put him in a movie for as long as he'll let me, you know, and like, I got to do 6 Month Rule with Natalie Morales, who's like one of my best friends now. And like the whole thing of, we got to fall in love and break up, and like, we as actors went through that together. And as a director, I collaborated with this fantastic actress to give this great performance. You know, I love being in the middle of all of it. So yeah, all of it, I guess.
Well, I think too, the criticism of an actor also making their own film isn't always warranted, because sometimes that's the only way that they can keep working. And I think that's a lack of a lot of actors. They don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, the great thing is like, I mean, who cares? Like, if that's what I want to do, and I go out and raise the money, and then I hire the people, and then I make a good movie, you know, like a 6-month rule, I was more self-conscious about it because it was a bigger budget, and I don't know. I guess it was just like I didn't want to be that narcissistic, actor who built a movie around himself acting. But now I'm like, I'm a good actor, and especially with Cut to the Chase, it was a smart business move because it was a $100,000 movie, and it would have been way more expensive to hire somebody and house them and pay them overtime. I didn't get any overtime on this movie. And, but you know what I mean? It's like, I'm at this point where I'm like, I want to do the projects I want to do. And like the next one is a horror film that I'm not in. But if I decide to write myself a part in, guess what?
There you go.
I'm going to do it. I love it though. It's like, this is, Mark Harmon, when I was doing Weather Girl, pulled me aside and he's like, this is it right here. This is the fun. This is the enjoyment. I know you're stressed out. I know you really want this to be good, but you need to enjoy this while you're doing it. And like, I try to remember that. It's very hard to remember that when you're stressed out and you have all this pressure on it. But like, I'm getting better at that of like, this is it. I'm going to make the movie I want to make. I'm not going to compromise because of some idea of what somebody over there might think. I'm too confident in the people that I pulled together to worry about something like that. And it's like you said, the best thing about it is seeing these movies that like me and my collaborators have made and being like, yeah, that's what I did in 2008, that's what I did in 2011, and this is what I did in 2015. That's how I spent those years, and I think that's legit.
Right, instead of waiting for someone to cast you, which I know a lot of talented people wait around in this town.
Sure.
They get fed up. So you went out and did it. Now going back to that with Mark Harmon, what was going on at the time when he said that to you?
I believe it was day one on Weather Girl, and he was shooting the first day, and we had a sound stage. I'd never had a sound stage. My buddy Brandon, who was a producer on that film, and we bought the house together, and we did theater together when we were both 7 years old. He was on set, and I went over to him, and I was kind of giving Harmon a little tour of the sound stage, and I turned to Brandon, and I'm like, do you think anybody knows that I have no idea what I'm doing right now? And he's like, you're doing great. Just keep going. But it was stressy. It was a stressy day. We had this huge setup with the biggest actors of the movie, and I was a little stressed out. But he's a very kind man, and he kind of saw that I was more stressed than I was having a ball, and he was right. He was right. I try to remember that.
That's great. So you can still see it you can still see that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Absolutely. And he's awesome too. Like, he's way cooler than me. So like, having Special Agent Gibbs give you life advice, you pay attention.